It is Wednesday, December 4th, and we have a great show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and to this day in history. This morning, we are going to take a look at Wilson's legacy for our featured program of the day during the coffee segment. And we're also going to take a look at the the great work that a teacher, a health ed teacher, is teaching at Wareham Middle School regarding the dangers of vaping and how to combat peer pressure. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the news headlines and the weather report are next. Okay, so this morning, the planning board will host a public workshop to present the planned Wareham Congress and hear feedback from residents on Saturday, December 14th at 10 a.m. in the auditorium at Wareham Town Hall, 54 Marion Road in Wareham. The Congress will be a forum where representatives from different Wareham agencies, including boards, committees, councils, and commissions, could collaborate on the management and execution of the Wareham Master Plan. The workshop will include a presentation of the Congress proposal, an update on the current master plan, and an opportunity for feedback and discussion. All are encouraged to attend. For more information, please contact Richard Swanson. Also, the Board of Selectmen voted on Tuesday night to set the price for 2020 transfer station stickers at $40 each, in line with the other towns in the Waste District. For seniors, the stickers will cost $20. Stickers for second cars will cost $10 regardless of the purchaser's age. The stickers are required beginning on January 1st for access to the Benson Brook transfer station in Marion and Route 28 transfer station in Rochester. It is not yet clear whether one-day passes to the transfer stations will be available in 2020, but Selectman Jim Menees will ask about them at the district's next town meeting. Beach parking stickers will be sold separately and will cost $15 each, or $5 per senior. Transfer stations stickers will be available at the Department of Natural Resources, located at the Multi-Service Center, from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, beginning on December 16th. Town Administrator Derek Sullivan reminded residents that this is the last year that the Waste District will be funded by CMS, which currently pays the towns for each ton of waste. Also, a battle regarding a brand, a logo. One of the Woo Sox logos is so similar to that of Gateman's, our own Wareham Gateman. And if that is necessary, the gatemen are willing to make the upstarts to court to protect the original W. The Woo Sox are the newest incarnation of the Pawtucket Red Sox, or Paw Sox, which is the AAA affiliate team for the Red Sox. The Wareham Gatemen are a summer college team and are part of the Cape Cod Baseball League. And also the winter storm that pretty much scared all of us just days after Thanksgiving, caused some damage on Tuesday. Some hazardous on the road. Wareham school officials called for a 3-hour delay to give crews time to clean the streets ahead of school bus pickups. About 10 a.m., pickups truck went off the road on Route 25 and into the woods. The driver was trapped inside, and the first responders had to use the jaws of life to extricate him from the vehicle. And also later that day, about 1:30 p.m., a tree fell across Great Neck Road, briefly blocking the road. Responders from the Wareham Department of Natural Resources quickly cleaned up the mess. And to another news, a Plymouth man is facing multiple charges, including 9 accounts of assault and battery on police officer following a disturbance at the emergency room at Toby Hospital. At 4:52 a.m. on Tuesday, December 3rd, police responded to the hospital where they found Paul Hartchie, 41 years old, being unruly and threatening staff members. Officers eventually subdued and arrested Hartchie, although he was resisting and kicked one officer twice. At the police station, Hartchie allegedly continued to be combative by spitting, punching an officer in the face with a closed fist, kicking an officer, and attempting to rip equipment from the officer's uniform. Eventually, the officer resorted to using pepper spray in an attempt to subdue Hartchie. None of the officer's injuries were serious enough to warrant medical attention. And that is all for this morning news headlines. And right now, we're going to take a look at our weather forecast. All right, partly cloudy this morning, high around 40 degrees. Mostly cloudy skies this evening, becoming completely cloudy at midnight, and low at 26 degrees. Tomorrow, some sunshine and clouds, 42 for a high, clear skies at night with 24 for a low. And that is all for this morning weather forecast. And right now we are going to take a look at our first featured program of the day, and that is teaching students on the dangers of vaping and helping them combat peer pressure. Take a look.
In a world of growing addiction and peer pressure, a local school nurse is teaching her students the tools they will need in order to combat the harmful trends.
E-cigarettes and the dangers of vaping is a hot topic at Wareham Middle School.
My daughter told me a couple of years ago that kids were vaping in a class that she was in.
Consequently, she came across the Catch My Breath program, a cigarette and vaping lesson that focuses on peer pressure resistance, the dangers surrounding drug usage, and misleading advertising tactics.
It was just kind of a lucky thing that I happened to came across at the right time when I was hearing about it. And they seem very effective. So, and then now, of course, the whole vaping thing is blown up, and there's so much going on. It's even more vitally important with all these horrible illnesses that are happening.
Did you have a conversation with the students to talk about why they are vaping and what their path was to vaping?
Yes, when we first start, when I very first introduced the lesson, I have a little discussion with them. The young lady who had said that she stopped, I remember her response at the beginning, because she was quite honest about it. She said it looks cool. She said it looks cool. So there's a coolness factor that I've noticed with the advertising. And the kids, show me more. It turned out when I questioned them a little bit more, I think this was last year, they said on YouTube, there's a lot of YouTubers who are vaping, and they show these tricks that look cool. And I think a lot of the young boys were encouraged that, like, oh, maybe this will help you look cool and you'll get a girlfriend, that kind of thing.
Catch My Breath program was developed by the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston School of Public Health, with the mission to equip students with the knowledge and skills they need to make informed decisions about the use of e-cigarettes. The program celebrates 2 years at Wareham Middle School.
Did they seem to understand the pernicious effects of doing such a thing?
I don't think they do.
Okay.
I think that that's what it is. I think that the companies, the e-cigarette companies, have promoted the product in a way. Well, when you say vaping, for example, you think of water vapor. I know in middle school science, that definitely has to do with the standards we cover. So you think of water coming off of the bay, as we see around here in the morning. You don't think of harmful chemicals. So when they see it, they think, oh, it's just water vapor. And I think the companies were encouraging that, but it's not. It's actually an aerosol. It's fine particles when you ignite it, and so it's not a vapor. It's particles that they're inhaling into the lungs, which we now know is so bad. So the kids really don't know that it's dangerous.
The program has generated earnest success. So far, 2 of her students have expressed how the program has empowered them to stand up against peer pressure and the desire to vape.
They seem quite thrilled to be informed about it. They're happy for the news, and they feel kind of empowered, I would say. And sometimes if we have time at the end of the week, I'll have them make posters, or I'll say, well, do you want to do something more with this? And they say, oh, we'd like to make posters to do something to teach the other kids, because they feel they're knowledgeable now, and knowledge is power.
Now, when we talk about kids, this is the middle school. How young are these kids who are vaping?
Well, I don't hear about it. We don't really have much of a problem with it here. It comes up rarely at the middle school, just here and there, and it's certainly, as far as I'm aware, it hasn't come up as much in discipline. I think it's more of a problem at the high school, but obviously it does happen here and there, and kids are seeing it. And I feel very strongly that 7th grade especially is a really prime time to get these kids with lessons, because from what I understand about their development and their age, I work with a lot of different ages, they're just kind of on the cusp of, are they going to try it? 7th grade for some kids, they might start. 8th grade, 9th, 10th, I think the older you get up into high school, there's a more chance because they're exposed to it. But I feel this is the right age to give them these lessons, yeah.
Are you working with a nurse at the high school to further this lesson, to help those students at the higher level?
No, I don't work with the high school. We don't have a lot of opportunity to meet with them. I am, with other work I'm doing now towards addiction, I am starting to work more with the high school on that. And of course, the e-cigarettes fall under the category of addiction because of the nicotine in it. So I am wanting to do that, and I am looking forward to do that. I've made some connections at the high school, and that's something I'm working on now.
So when we're talking about addiction, you talked about vaping. Also, I'm thinking substance abuse, such as alcohol.
Yes.
All right. Marijuana is also very big.
Yes.
Especially that now it's legal.
Yes.
What other types of addiction are you covering? Because our area and those neighboring towns around the Cape, we are swamped when it comes to opioids addiction. We have
Yes.
lost a lot of people.
Yes.
And some of these kids may be coming from homes where they have lost very prominent people in their
Yes.
homes.
Yeah.
So what other addictions or substance use do you cover, and how do you present it to them in a way that they can fight the idea or the notion of being cool, doing something for just
Yeah.
being cool rather than being themselves and to make something better of their lives?
Yes, yes. Well, yes, it's very important. Well, the way I start off addiction is, well, we talk about addiction specifically. We talk about it, and we discuss different substances and things that are addictive, because we talk about, can you be addicted to video games, and what does it mean to be addicted? So we talk about the difference between physical addiction and mental addiction. And so I tell them that some drugs, literally alter the way that the brain works. And some drugs people can, and you'd have withdrawals if you stop taking it, as opposed to a mental addiction where you feel like you need it, but you could stop and there'd be no sign. So we talk about how marijuana can be mentally addictive, but not physically addictive. So it's 2 different types. We discuss that. We talk about addiction in all different forms, and we also talk about why. And on my website, I've posted, because the lists are great, what the kids come up with after we've spent some time discussing it, why you don't want to be addicted. And so they list things like, the cost and what it could do to your family, and the trust your friends might have in you, the trouble you can get in school. And I did this, I remember, towards the end of last year. One young man who was in the class, he said, wow, I never thought about all the consequences to being addicted. So we talk about the opioid addiction and how now the problem has ballooned so much because of people being prescribed painkillers from their doctors, and how that's created a whole, another level to the problem, and how kids had gone into their parents' medicine cabinets or grandparents' medicine cabinets and taken pills sometimes, just thinking, not knowing what it was as an experiment, and how that led to it.
She acknowledges that with the legalization of substances such as marijuana, one way to combat the problem is focusing on postponing rather than abstaining.
So the research I'm doing, being back in school, is showing me that a lot of these abstinence-only programs for drug education really didn't work. The DARE program, which a lot of people thought it was abstinence-only, they say that what works more effectively is teaching kids to at least postpone it, accept the idea. I mean, in this culture, honestly, television, movies, everywhere you look, if you think about it, we do a lot of promotion of drugs and alcohol and stuff that is addictive. So we have to recognize the fact that that's there. The kids see it. Of course, they're curious about it. And we also kind of make it look glamorous and sophisticated sometimes. So there's a good chance that they're probably going to want to try some of these things later. So I say to them, if you could just wait, because your brain is developing. I show them this clip. We look at a couple of other pieces of evidence that speak to the same facts, and I think that does resonate with them. It's like, okay, try it, but how about you just wait? Wait until you're that much older, and yeah.
Now, these are all like viable lessons that you're teaching here. I'm thinking that what are different ways you can involve an entire community? Therefore, when you don't have your eyes on your kids, somebody else can watch them.
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm glad you asked that question. So I've recently gone back to school at Northeastern University, working on a doctorate of education, and the way that the program runs is we follow, or we are being taught to follow a model called action research. And so what I'm going to do is work with the community. I've already made contact with Lieutenant Correa at the Wareham Police, and he told me about a drug court. So I'm in touch with a probation officer there who's going to allow me to come in and kind of see how it works. So ultimately what I want to do is work with different members of the community who are stakeholders in the problem of addiction, who work with it, first responders, programs around town that help with addiction. And I want to get their input on what they think kids need to learn, what are the lessons that even hopefully speak to people who do have addiction problems, say, what do you think maybe would have stopped you when you were younger, or do you have some advice? And then create a new set of addiction lessons that address specifically the problems that people in our town see as the bigger issues.
I hope you learned a lot of valuable information from that video, and for more information, or if you have any questions of your own, you can feel free to reach out to the Wareham Middle School. And right now we are going to go to another program of the day, and that is Pretentious Pickle. Take a look.
Hello, this is Queen Banda from WCTV. Today we're in Pembroke visiting Lorraine, the owner of Pretentious Pickle. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi.
Lorraine today is going to show us how she makes her fan favorite pickled sweet and sour beets right here. So stay tuned, because this is going to be a one crunchy, delicious meal. How did you get started?
Well, I pickled all my life. Used to always pickle with my dad, and we have a lot of family recipes that were passed down. And then somebody said, you should start giving this out to people and see how they like it. And that's how it started. I just started doing farmers markets. The way I came up with Pretentious Pickle was really weird, because I was meditating. And all of a sudden, the name Pretentious Pickle came in my head, and I was like, I wonder what that is. And a few minutes later, I was like, that's me.
Out of nowhere, just the word Pretentious Pickle.
Yeah, meditating is awesome. That's always the way I would be meditating. So yeah, I came up with the name, and I thought, well, something, I'll just see where it goes. And that was about 2 years ago, and I've never looked back. And we just kept going from there. And the more you do the markets, the more people start asking for things. Okay. And they're like, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And people love to give you their recipes too. And when we make our beer pickles, because we use Mayflower Brewery a lot, and we source them for all of our different beer pickles. And this one is their new Thanksgiving. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, now what do I want to use for a brine with that will complement? That's a very dry tasting beer, so I had to come up with something like that if I wanted to be a little sweet. Or so that took a little bit of work. And you do like 2 or 3 brines before you finally get it right. And you ask people to try it too. My children usually like to volunteer.
Yeah, they're good for that. So I'm looking around here. You can pick almost anything.
Yes.
I mean, I am familiar with pickled beets, and of course familiar with pickled pickles. But I'm looking at green beans, right?
Yeah.
What we have? Green beans. We have red onions right here. We have garlic. Oh my God. We have cauliflower in here. So it's like all this.
I just look at things now and I'm like, yeah, I'd pickle that.
Is there anything that you cannot?
Not that, I mean, you have to use a little bit of sense with it. You wouldn't try and pickle, I don't know, just something silly. But if it's a vegetable, 99% of it you can pickle.
Yes.
In the summer we do the pickled watermelon, we do okra, we do things that are seasonal too. So with the holiday coming up, like this is some of our selection for our Thanksgiving. And we'll do pickled beets, we do the pickled cranberries, and we also do a cranberry gin pickle, and we use the dirty water cranberry, it's a bog witch, their gin, and all of that will be just for Thanksgiving.
Very good. Now tell me, what's your biggest seller?
Bad Larry's. Bad Larry, yeah, it's this one right here. And it's a spicy string bean, it's a spicy dill bean. When you open these, they're very crispy.
Okay.
And we call them Bad Larry's because my cousin Kim was eating them one day. She's like, I love that Bad Larry. I go, okay, well, there's that. So we call them Bad Larry's, and they are fabulous and Bloody Mary. But my favorite is definitely the beets. And even when I'm cooking them, it's like 3 for the judge or for me. I love beets. So working with that, it was a funny story because probably about a month and a half ago, there was a woman at the market, and we were talking about the beets, and I'm like, these are my pride and joy. I said, and I take a stone, my sister Patty gave me a nice stone, and I grind the clove up in it, so it's almost a dust, and then I sprinkle it into the brine, and she goes, oh, the old Amish way. I'm like, I didn't make that up. No, that's what I was like, I'm like, no, I made that up. No, they've been doing it for 100 years. I was like, well, I didn't know them, so... my idea, but I had no idea that somebody else did that. This is not good. Oh my God. So in here we just have.
I want to break it.
In here we have sugar, ground clove, whole clove, cinnamon, ground allspice, and vinegar.
Are you sure you cannot turn that into juice or something, or warm drink or something? It's not even good.
Oh my God. I know, it does smell good, doesn't it? It's delicious. I love this brine. I love the way it makes the kitchen smell.
God, you can eat the whole jar.
Yeah, a lot of people do. It is. It's a good product.
Which shouldn't be bad, right? Because it's not like I'm stuffing my face with a cake.
No, it's good for you. Maybe a little sugar, but nothing to worry about.
So thank you so much for joining us in the show. Again, I had Lorraine from the Pretentious Pickle Company making pickled beets, you name it. From WCTV, I am your host, Queen Banda. Have a wonderful day. Okay, because now it is that time of the year where we order gifts, and homemade gifts are very good. They will clearly deliver that message of love to your loved one, so you can reach out to Pretentious Pickle. If you love pickles or your loved one does love pickles, that is one way you can shop for this holiday season. Right now, we're going to take a look at a noble project, rescuing cats and also giving them the medical attention they need, and also working to prevent the widespread of wild cats outdoors. So this is Papa's Pet Project, and they're located in Plymouth, and they are a nonprofit that could use your help. Take a look.
In case you're looking for a way to express your gratitude for this Thanksgiving, Papa's Pet Project could use your help.
Papa's Pet Project was founded by myself in 2009, and it started as just a kitten rescue because the kittens were being dropped off at the shelter that I was volunteering at.
Located in Monument, Plymouth, the nonprofit rescue provides shelter and permanent homes for stray and abandoned animals.
We average approximately 200 cats are rescued and adopted every year. Our need is always volunteers, foster homes, fundraising, people who want to do some fundraising for us. Some of the vet bills are atrocious, and 3 cats this year had stomatitis, which is a dental disease, and each cat's vet bill was $1,500.
The shelter abuts a pet supply store whose net proceeds go back to supporting the much needed operation. One of the key messages the adoption center pushes is the need to spade.
With cats, they can get pregnant at 6 months, and it's a horrible thing. It's horrible. By 9 months, they're delivering 4 to 6 kittens. They don't know what's going on. They haven't had a kittenhood. You know, maybe some kittens won't make it in the delivery. It's really a horrible thing. And then this little kitten, who's just 9 months now, has to take care of 4 to 6 kittens for the next 3 months, or I should say for the next 8 weeks. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for them. So putting a cat through that just because they didn't get spayed is just not necessary in this day and age. It's not necessary.
So when people come here to adopt a cat or a kitten, what are some of the requirements you're looking for?
Okay, that's a good question, because every rescue has adoption applications, and the things we're looking for is that they're responsible. They've brought their animals to a vet when they've needed to be, seen by a vet. That the other animals they've had in the past, they've lived a long life. That their references are good, and that they have a home that will allow pets, which unfortunately is really hard.
The shelter has recently been the lucky recipient of a substantial donation from Walmart, all thanks to Sophia, who participated in a philanthropic challenge through the franchise to raise awareness and funds on behalf of Papa's Pet Project.
For me, growing up, we didn't have pets. I didn't know much about having animals. My husband and I got a nice apartment. We could have cats, and we rescued a little kitten. It's before I knew about shelters. It was a situation where someone had free kittens, and so we took this little kitten in, and he was very sick. We brought him to the vet. It required lots of care, and I got concerned. I was worried because if he hadn't been with us, what would have happened? So it just began there. I started finding local shelters that needed, whether it be goods, paper towels, anything like that, and we started bringing things to these shelters. Then I started volunteering. I've done trapping, trapping ferals, which are like the unsocialized cats outside. We've done fostering. I've been a foster failure, which means when it's time for the cat to come back to the shelter for adoption, we just can't part ways and they stay with us. We've done hospice care, which is providing kitties that are terminally ill like a home to be in instead of, living out their days in a shelter. We just give them that unconditional love.
As for 2020 goal,
the cats that have been slipping through the cracks, and those are the cats that didn't actually get socialized enough to be adopted, but they're not feral and they can't be released. And there's lots of them out there. So we need foster homes that will work one-on-one with the cat, nice and slow, nice and easy, but they deserve a life too. I would love for a rehab to take in a cat that the people that are trying to recover can have a little love and success. Because once you make that bond with a cat, especially if it's scared, there's nothing like it. And it changes you. It changes your heart. And sometimes that's what people need to get over the tragedies that they've suffered. And a lot of people can identify how scared a cat is. So rehabs or nursing homes.
So you talked about that this costs a lot of money and
Yes.
a lot of time.
Yes.
So what is the most rewarding part of this?
This. This right here, this little one. This little one is saved. She's fixed, and she's ready for her new home. And she's going to be adopted with her buddy Hammer. And they get along, they play, and as soon as they pick their family, they'll be having a great life. This is the reward.
All right, so let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with more.
Are you tired of having to send money for your Office 365 subscription? Are you looking for other programs that you don't have to pay for? Here are a couple of solutions to some open source programs that you might want to check out. If you want a few great alternatives to Microsoft Office, try Apache OpenOffice or LibreOffice. Both are fantastic alternatives. Keep in mind that if you still need to create a Microsoft Word or Excel document, both are able to save files in the right formats. Another popular replacement for Microsoft Office is my personal favorite, Docs, which you can use free if you have a Gmail account. You can also use Google Slides for spreadsheets and Slides for slideshows, while saving files is easy if you use your Google Drive. If you're in the market for a new photo editing program, try Paint.net, which is completely free. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Photoshop has, but it can still do basic photo editing, adjusting, and airbrushing. Another nifty program to try out if you're into sound editing is Audacity, which you can use on either a Windows or a Macintosh computer. Just search for Paint.net or Audacity on Google, and you can download both for free. If you're interested in learning about the basics of Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and organizing files, come to our free intermediate computer classes, which will run on September 5th, September 12th, and September 19th next month at 1:30 p.m. on Thursdays here at the main library. You can also check out our website to find out more about our basic computer skills classes. If you have any questions or would like to register for any of these classes, you can contact me at the library at smiller@salesinc.org, or you can call my extension at 508-295-2343, extension 1012. Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Checkout of the Week from the Wareham Free Library.
Oh, well, hello, and thank you for being with us this morning. We're broadcasting live from our WCTV studio. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where we were today in history. Well, on this day in basketball history, All-Star point guard Latrell Sprewell was suspended by the NBA after an incident during practice in 1997. The incident, after the coach criticized a pass he made, Latrell went up to him and choked him. He was pulled away by the teammates, only to return minutes later and swing on him. Latrell was handed a 68-game suspension and will be traded from the Golden State Warriors to the Knicks. Also on this day in pollution history, thousands in London were killed by the smog in 1952. A mix of high and low pressure systems made the air stand practically still, and the cold December temperatures resulted in residents burning a lot of extra coal to keep their houses warm. As a result, carbon dioxide, smoke, and sulfur dioxide. The smoke lasted for 5 days, getting so bad that it even blocked out the sun. It is thought that the smog killed anywhere from 4,000 to 12,000 people. Also, on this day in disaster history, the Typhoon Pablo wreaked havoc on the Philippines in 2012. The Category 5 storm caused floods that swept away entire villages, causing the death of over 1,000 people. Over 200,000 people ended up being stranded on the island. Sadly, the islands were hit with another devastating storm just 1 year later. It has taken years for them to rebuild. For today's birthday, shout out goes to Crazy Horse, the Native American leader who was born in 1840 in Nebraska. He was a Sioux chief known for leading natives in the Battle of Little Bighorn. That is all for this morning history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online under history.com. Stay with us. The coffee segment is next. But first, let's take a look at our events calendar. All right, and now let's take a look at a story that galvanized 1,000. The story of Wilson Labau Jr., who handmade a boat, a humongous trimaran, but unfortunately he died before his dream came true of sailing that boat. And so this is the rest of the story of what happened after his death, the work that it took to make his dreams come to fruition, and eventually have that boat in the water. Take a look. For longer than 3 decades, the residents of Peabody witnessed a legacy in the making. A trimaran carved to a symbol that would unite 1,000. To hear the full story, I visited New Hampshire to meet Carl and Lisa.
Wilson Labeo was my stepdad. Married my mom about 18 years ago or so.
At Lowell Street in Peabody, Massachusetts, Wilson was building a 45-foot Roger Simpson trimaran, a lifelong project that started back in 1984 with the help of his father. And after 32 years in the making, a freak accident took Wilson's life, putting his dreams into a halt.
So He was working in the backyard and he was cutting brush right in front of the boat along the brook. And we don't really know totally exactly what happened. My mom called me and said he hadn't been in the house. And I said, well, call the police right away.
Wilson died in August of 2017 at the age of 76. His wife Peggy died months later from an illness. Leaving behind was Wilson's unfinished dream, Foxy Lady.
What did you guys know about the project? How invested were you?
Well, that's really why I was so passionate at the end here to get the boat done and to find a good home for the boat, because I really wasn't very invested in the boat, and I felt really bad about that. I think other family members and kids, other stepchildren that Wilson had growing up, probably put a lot of time into helping him with the boat.
Tell us about what this boat, you said it meant so much to him. What was his vision? The boat is humongous.
Yeah. So the boat, he had studied different options to build. He wanted to obviously have a boat that he could sail and race on the weekends. And he decided on that particular style of boat, the trimaran, because it gave him the ability to have a cruising boat that he could, you know, take long trips on if he wanted to, but he could also race it on the weekends. And so he somehow came across some plans for this Roger Simpson design. You know, Wilson had a different idea in mind of what he wanted to do with the boat. So most people, I was told, build a foam boat. And this is a cold molded boat.
Yeah.
Nobody would really build a cold molded boat because it would take too much time and it would be too expensive, even though it's beautiful.
Wilson's design exceeded every expectation.
He shaped the hull into a different design, and the wings and the armors are a different design. So when I actually started to research the boat to try to find one, I couldn't find anything that looked like that boat. So you think of all the images on Google of all the boats in the world, and like you couldn't find another one like it. If you Google Roger Simpson Liahona, now you'll see Wilson's boat.
So when you lost Wilson and then you lost your mother, then the boat was left behind, and as you said, you knew he was working on it, but you weren't cueing in all the details, all the plans.
Right.
So to walk us the steps. You wanted to sell the boat, but we wanted to find the right person.
Right. Well, you know, you kind of walk out to the boat and you take it all in, you know, and you're like, oof, where do I start, right? And so you kind of look around inside the boat and see where he was at. So he had his wire list out and he had all his wiring tools, and he was pulling wire and starting to wire everything up. And, you know, looking at the outside of the boat, you could see that it was weathered and at the point where it really needed attention on the outside.
As beautiful as the boat was, Carl and Lisa were facing one big question: what to do with the boat? Having no passion to own a boat, nor the funds to finish and maintain the boat, they started looking for the one who would not only buy Wilson's boat, but see his dreams into fruition.
It was kind of an odd duck, I was told many times. Well, if you're going to find a trimaran person, you know, that's a needle in the haystack, you know, because it takes a special person that's going to want that boat.
The clock was ticking faster than they could manage. They had a year to make a decision.
One of the last people that was really serious that was on the boat from like October, November of last year into May of this year, he had come and sort of done his survey, cleaned up the boat, helped reorganize everything, and then he was actually looking at another boat to take a look at the rigging to see how he was going to rig this boat.
Oh, okay.
And they offered him that boat for the cost of the move. So when he backed out at the beginning of June, we were like devastated because we had just let him go the entire winter without advertising the boat to anybody else or working with anybody else to take the boat.
And this time the boat was still at the property, right?
Correct.
And you guys had already sold the house.
Right, yeah, so we had till August 10th to get the boat out of the property, or we would have to salvage it and split the proceeds with the owner of the house.
Yeah.
So you were looking for somebody, the right person, you thought you found the right person, you stopped advertising, that deal fell through.
Right.
Now you're desperate.
Right. But there was a gentleman before Garth that we weren't quite sure about. He was young, he was 24, had a lot of passion. He worked at a boatyard, did fiberglass work, that sort of thing. He was an Eagle Scout. His name was Jesse from Maine. And Jesse had big plans for the boat. And he actually had invested money into the final survey. He invested money into the boat move because he had to have a deposit down. So we felt really bad for Jesse. He ran into some financial issues like a week before the boat was supposed to move and said that he couldn't do it. And I had gone down to visit with Tim. So Tim was a homeowner. We sat down on the back deck and I said, "So Tim, we're not going to make the 10th. What would you like to do? You want to cut the boat up, salvage it?" He said, "Nope." He goes, "We can't cut that boat up." He said, "Wilson will haunt me the rest of my life." And I said, "Okay." So he said, "Try to find another person to take the boat."
You were at his mercy.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
And with the opportunity, Carl and Lisa went back to the old list, looking at those who had shown earnest interest.
I was just going on all the Facebook pages that had those, and we basically at that point had come up with the idea that we would give the boat away if somebody
free.
would pay to move it.
To move it.
And finish it and not salvage it.
Yeah.
Was it a desperate decision or what was it?
Well, we were told that the boat needed like $50,000 to $75,000 worth of work. And so we thought it only fair to whoever the potential buyer, taker, if you will, even though we weren't selling, but whoever was going to take the boat needed to have at least that jump start, with just the investment of the move in order to kind of make it feasible. But what needed to go along with that would be the knowledge to do it, because you really, if you paid somebody to do all the work on the boat, you might spend a couple $100,000 and the boat would never be worth a couple $100,000. So who would do that?
They found not only one person, but two, Dave and Court.
It could have maybe gone either way. I think Wilson's craftsmanship and the uniqueness of the boat and the whole story really got to David. It's like he saw the passion that Wilson, had put into the boat with the construction, and just, I think deep down inside, being a boat guy, he said, "No, this boat can't get cut up."
And so the challenge began, the actual logistics to how they will move a 32-year-old boat off the property. Since Wilson's boat was wider than the traditional trimarans, the permit to transport it would have to come straight from the governor's office.
Maybe about 3 weeks before we were going to move the boat, I got a call from Cindy at Brownell, the boat moving company, and she said, "We got a little bit of a problem. The boat's 30 feet wide and Mass DOT only allows 16-foot wide loads over the road."
Through the connection of an old friend, Carr was able to get in touch with Senator Tarr's office, which then he was connected with the head of Massachusetts Department of Transportation.
And Mr. Fody wrote back and he said, Mr. Hanselman, he said, I've lived on the North Shore a good part of my life, and I've traveled down Lowell Street, and I know exactly where your boat is, and when you guys are ready to move your boat, we'll have your permit ready to go.
While the planning was taking place, Wilson's boat was garnering attraction of its own. Neighbors and strangers sharing their memories of Wilson and what the boat meant to them. So when the moving day was scheduled, Carl, Lisa, David, and Court found themselves surrounded with strangers eager to help.
That was surreal. You just can't imagine, like, the events in those 2 days, right? So it started on Tuesday morning with the crane. And so the excitement of lifting that boat like 65 feet up in the air and over the top of the trees was like, what's gonna happen? What if they drop the boat? It had never moved out of that spot, like for 30, yeah. So just to see it move from that spot to the driveway was a big deal.
And just to see how big it was when it was up in the air coming down beside that barn was like,
yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's huge. It was like you thought it was just gonna go right on top of the barn. It was so big.
Yeah. My son and my son-in-law Keenan, we stopped because they had to drop signs for the boat to go by. The hulls were so wide when it went up onto 128. So as the boat went by, we ran out, put the signs back up, and screwed them back together. So we were sort of following the boat along.
And there it was, a moment 32 years in the making. Wilson's boat touching the water.
For me, it was a bigger deal watching the rudder hit the water, because that was like the first thing that touched the water. Everybody was excited when it floated in the water and stuff. I was just like, this boat, just to touch the water is incredible, right? So that was a big deal for me. I yelled when the rudder hit the water, but it finally eased down into the water.
For now, we're going to take it down to Marathon, Florida, in the Middle Keys, and we'll probably spend a year, maybe two, making everything complete. You know, when Wilson died, everything was left unfinished. So much has been done, but there's still a lot of work to do. So, but even as she is now, just under motor without the sails, I would still take her out on day trips or, you know, local things in the Keys. She's got a fantastic motor. She's a lot of fun on the water, so I don't feel like I have to wait for it to be done before she can start seeing some adventures.
Well, we have been looking for a larger vessel, and this boat suits pretty much any and all of our needs for what we want to do sailing and cruising. And like I said, the craftsmanship of the build was so well done that, and the possibility of if nobody took it, it could be cut up and, you know, parts, the engine salvaged, and all those years of work and would just go right down the drain. So I felt the need to save the boat from the landfill.
When you got the boat, what did you have to do in order to get into the water for the first time?
Ooh, that's a long list. We did a lot of fiberglass repair. Well, we spent 10 days working on the boat, mostly every night till midnight. And we'd get up, and it was chilly here, so we'd get up around 8 and start at it again. And when they came for the boat to transport it to the launch ramp at 1:30 in the morning, we were still working on it. And we were like, holy cow, we're out of time. So we got to the launch ramp and worked a few, maybe another hour or so. We got about 2 hours of sleep and got up and started working again. Even right when they were ready to launch, I was still installing like the strainer for the water intake for the engine. I'd forgotten about. And we had it was a variable pitch 3-blade prop, and we had one of the blades backwards. And one of the crew members of Brownell, the transport crew, had noticed that, so they focused on that and got that proper for us, because we were just so tired we couldn't even brain it. I could look at instructions and just go, eh.
This is definitely something that an individual would craft. This is more artwork than factory.
Where are some places that you could point out to say this is pure Wilson?
The bones in the boat. He put in an escape hatch, and that's cool in and of itself. But anywhere where we might take water from, say, an open window or something like that, instead of it running all the way down or sitting on the ledge, he drilled holes so that it runs down and instead of staying on. So he thought of all the contingencies for if this happens and if that happens. And
how long do you think this boat will last?
To answer that question, easily 30 years, even though this boat is already like 32 years into its build. It was, I think the first 15 years, it was built inside a building and then assembled 3 pieces into one. And then it was tarped and covered for winter, which really helped. Even Carl and Lisa, after Wilson's passing, they would cover the boat for the winter to keep the rain and snow and whatnot off of it. So that really helped save this boat. If it was just left out, uncovered, it would not be in the shape that it's in now.
Both of your hearts are rest to know that you have done Wilson proud and you have honored his wishes. Do you feel more at peace?
I do, for sure, because I felt like that I couldn't really relax or think about a lot of other stuff until that boat was sort of safe and moved and knew it was going to continue its life. I just felt like I had to do it, and people said that they couldn't believe that we put that much time and effort into it, and all the hurdles and everything that we went through. Looking back on it now, of course it was well worth it, you know. It was I said, aside from raising you know, 2 great kids and my family and everything else, maybe one of the most important things that I ever did in my life was save that boat. You know, I felt that passionate about it, you know, and yeah, not having spent as much time with Wilson as I should have.
You made it up.
I felt like, you know, a lot of people worked on the boat, a lot of people invested a lot of time, but Lisa and I got it in the water, and I just felt like that was our contribution to the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people, you know, felt sad that, you know, Wilson never got to see the boat in the water or never got to sail his boat. But I just really feel like that was his mission on Earth, was to build that boat, just to touch all the people that he touched along the way.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning for another Good Morning Wareham episode. If you missed us, this show will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. We'll be back here on Friday with more, and I hope to have a great guest here for you on Friday. There's plenty to discuss, especially the upcoming weekend events. Anyhow, Wareham, thank you, and have a pleasant day. Bye.